not distorted. But what they meant to say was not reported. Before the torches come to town, we gonna burn this fort down.
We thought it might be fun to talk to the mayor of TCU. He's a man who needs little introduction. Mere initials would ID this guy. Some call him GP, some call him Coach or Coach P. We're lucky enough, Brenton, to have Texas Christian University head coach Gary Patterson in studio to talk some life.
Thanks for being here.
My coach, first question, Coach, before I get to it, is I got to tell you something about my partner, Brenton. He's got a little limited understanding of the game of football. He's probably been convinced by his buddies of the legitimacy of the football bat. So keep that in mind, Coach. We're going to go light on the football talk today, and we're going to go heavy on the things that you don't get to talk about very often. Hope that's okay.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
Well, thank you for being here, Coach. We are honored to have you and appreciate your time.
You know, most people don't think, they think that's all coaches, that's all they know how to do. So it's always a lot more fun for me to talk about anything else as long as we're not going to talk politics. So
no, easy here. That's for later on the show.
Yeah, there's a thin firewall there. We're trying to separate the
Indeed.
two.
So, Coach, first question. Last season was obviously an Orthodox experience for most people in this planet, in this country, in this city. How did you handle the season after it was over? Can you speak about the experience going through COVID and all that entailed?
Well, yeah, I would tell you that, probably for talking for our student athletes, it's probably the most difficult thing that I think I've seen in 40 years of college football kids ever had to go through. You had to test 3 times a week. You couldn't hang around your friends. You really didn't go over to class. You didn't play in front of really many fans. And so that's the fun part of it. So you're talking about we started practicing all the way lifting back in June. We came back as a group, and basically they went all the way till almost Christmas time. And,
right.
You didn't, and the same for coaches. I have grandkids, and I seen them once in March, right when COVID started to hit, and then I saw them at Christmas.
Oh, wow.
Because you couldn't be around them, because if you tested, you probably were going to miss 3 ball games. You were going to be out for, X amount of days, especially if you were a close contact. Even if it was worse at that time. Now the rules, the guidelines have kind of changed, but it was probably one of the more difficult seasons. I felt some bad for guys like Trey Morrig, which here's a guy that's going to go in the first round, and he deserved to be able to play in front of huge stadiums and the kind of player that he was, and didn't get an opportunity to do that. But it really turned out to be a unbelievable season. Won 5 out of the last 6. We were a young football team, only had 8 seniors. And so, with everything that went on, I get a chance to fight back and really give us a lot of energy going into this year.
Right. I talked to you right before the bowl game got canceled. You told me how hard that was. I mean, I can't even imagine. Can you maybe walk us through how that went through with the guys and how you delivered the bomb?
Well, it wasn't really the bomb. It was just, it's really harder on, Arkansas was going to go a day earlier than what we had, and we tested, and we were already down guys. A couple guys opted out. And, the rule in the Big 12 is you can't go underneath the 2 deep at the D tackle position, and we had 2 guys test positive at 10:30 night the night before, and we had to come in. We spent almost 3 hours trying to find a way to, because you're talking about the health of your kids. And so if you're going to go in, and of the 3 defensive tackles that were left, 2 of them were freshmen. 2 of them hadn't played more than 20 plays in a ball game. And so you're sitting there with that. And then we were down for a 5 defensive back system. We only had 7. We only had total of six DBs.
Wow. And
of those, 3 of them were going to have surgery as soon as we would have got done with the bowl game. So they probably would not have played the full game with both Ardarius and Trey opting out, which it's their. You got to be excited for them and doing the things you do. You would like to have known it maybe by the 1st of December, not the Tuesday or Wednesday before the Saturday that you were going to play and do the things you needed to do. But it all went well. You felt bad for the kids, but in some ways it was probably better for us because you had one more ball game. You didn't get anybody else injured. You do the things you need to do, but it would have been a great reward for those guys. But in some ways, it's not like a normal bowl game. You weren't going to be able to go down for 4 days and enjoy the city.
Mm-hmm.
Basically,
Certainly. You're
going to fly down the day before the game. You're going to have pregame meal, and then you're going to go play the game and fly back. And so, it's our guys got home a little bit earlier.
Right. Flipping the switch to Brenton's question now.
Well, let me ask this first about that, is that you talk about this lack of communication with the players, lack of seeing them. You got everybody's got this added stress to that, and you're the leader of this thing. I mean, how do you handle that? I mean, you've already got enough stress anyway.
Well, we really didn't have lack of communication. We were on Zoom calls all the time. You had, we were a little bit different. Our kids came in June. When we came back, and we could, you could see them. The lack of communication was just with family or anybody that was outside the bubble.
Yeah.
But our kids, we were able to see all the time. Anybody that didn't test 3 times a week, you all think, but it's like just another check mark on your daily routine for the week that you have to do, because you're talking about on Friday we're going to test a rapid test and find out here you did the work all week and find out if who was going to get on the bus or not.
Sure.
To be able to go to the ball game, and so you might have planned a guy into the game plan, and he might test positive, and then now that part of that game plan is completely gone.
Sure.
And so it was different.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you found maybe a little time to hunker down. We've got a little sample of something we want to talk about.
We heard this song that was.
Yeah.
Take a step back. Take a look.
We don't know if you've heard this or not, Gary. It's really good. Have you had a chance to listen to it?
When you listen to yourself, you don't ever think you sound well, but it was fun.
Very solid lyrics, though. We were commenting just before the show.
Yeah, who wrote that? Did you write that?
Oh yeah, it's JT Hodges, which is a TCU grad, kind of cleaned it up. I flew privately because I couldn't go public. Flew down to it was a bucket list thing. We weren't going to be able to go on vacation or do anything else, so that was kind of my getaway. 3 or 4 days, so went down to a place called Leaper's Fork, which is a place called the Purple House, which is kind of named TCU.
Oh yeah,
which is a guy there by the name of Casey Wasner that has actually won a Grammy, being the engineer for other Kebmo, different other artists.
Yeah.
And so we went down and spent about 3 or 4 days, knocked it out, and then went back down again for a song called Game On that we did for the season that both ESPN Game Day and then Fox actually used early in the season for their pregame stuff. And so it was, I played in a band for, a lot of years early in my life, and so the other thing about not having spring ball, not being I was able to get my voice back. So was able to sing a little bit where you're not out there barking at people all the time.
So what was the inspiration? I mean, you can kind of see where we were with this time in all of our lives, but that take a step back. Like, explain that a little.
Well, JT and I were talking because he was going to come and be the entertainment for our foundation.
Okay.
And when that canceled, so we were nice. So one day, we need to write a song together, and so. This was on a Friday night. Well, on Sunday morning, I sent him a song called Lonesome Man's Waltz. He called me right back and said, this is unbelievable. I wrote it back when I was like in my early 30s. And he cleaned it up. And so he actually recorded it. And I haven't released that one yet. And so I told him, I said, with everything going on, I have this idea about take a step back. So one night, it was like on a Thursday or Friday night, I was recruiting, calling kids, and it was about 11:30. So I just sat down, like a lot of times with songs, they just come real quick. And so I wrote it and did it on camera phone, which is how him and I kind of communicated.
Sure.
I sent it to him, and then we did it, and he kind of sent me back and actually took me from A up to 8 sharp, thought it sounded better with it a little bit higher, which is what you do. The being in studio is so cool, just because of the way you do things, the way you break down the song and how and all the different parts of how you get it done. And so went down and, initially I thought he would probably be the person that sang, but when we did it, he thought that my voice actually sounded better on the song.
Yeah.
And so we did it, and, really got a lot of shout outs from a lot of guys that are in the industry, that are here in Texas, they're Texas country guys that heard it. So it, when we had the idea to put it to a TCU, a little bit of highlights kind of to get people fired up. And so I think in impressions, we had almost a little over 800,000.
Oh, wow.
That. And so I think if you go to Spotify, my wife, we're not going to quit our day job though, because my wife, for Christmas, she took the picture off of Spotify, and she gave me my first royalty check, and she put it in there for it. It's at $9.08. So
Wonderful.
yeah, so I think I'm in the hole.
You can buy another pack of guitar strings with it. I mean, that is greatness. Yeah.
Maybe picks.
Yeah.
Yes.
We could do picks, not necessarily guitar
Well, the
strings.
name of the song is Take a Step Back, and a perfect segue into the next question. If you guys want to hear that song, you should listen. It's quite good. The lyrics are pretty powerful lyrics. So great job on the song, Coach.
Well, thank you.
Considering Take a Step Back, most people have a general understanding of how much stress stress a head coach, especially if a premier Division I program, goes through? And I think I have the answer based on the song title, but how does one manage that level of stress all the time and then find a way to have a real life on the other side of things and maybe write songs or sing? How do you find the switch?
Well, I tell you, that was one of the things I think the music did for me. It kind of was my release through what we went through, especially from about April through till we started with the kids coming back in June. Because we were going to play, we weren't going to play. You're talking about if we didn't play, you're talking about losing millions of dollars in TV money, and so furloughing and people losing jobs, and so it's everything. There was what people understand, even the city of hotel rooms, restaurants, people coming to games, all the things that go along with that time of the year. So there was really a push, and you have to give Chancellor a lot of credit, right. Victor, because he was really the head of the presidents, and he kind of helped push, say, we should go do this, because really the Big 12 was the leader, and really Jeremiah, and the ADs in the conference and the coaches, and so you have a group, but if you go look at some of these guys, you can tell that it, and they're starting to look better when I get a chance to see them on different calls, but it took its toll on I think a little bit of everybody just because of the stress, because we didn't know about what COVID was about, so you're really worried about the kids' health. Now we're finding out that the younger generation, it doesn't affect them as much maybe as what it does others, and so but you didn't know that at the time. And then how do you protect all the people that actually, the support groups that are older, that actually from your doctors, your trainers, your equipment people, all of them.
Right.
How do you protect all of them to make sure that you get up every day? So every day was it was a deal. We probably took a little bit more time where we stayed away from the office. I took a little bit different approach. A lot of people stayed away, and we tried to come in and but we did it every day. We'd come with like an offense, so you had only small amounts by whatever the ordinance was here in town. Mm-hmm. So you had them in town so they could actually come up, and I think that helped their mental situation of being able to do things normally that they would, not doing it from home, all the different things all the time. So you're around people, and then we were around kids, and so we had to do a lot more talking to our kids, I think.
Mm-hmm. Right. Entering spring ball, do you feel like you've had a chance to maybe recharge at some level, or do you feel like we're still in that same, even though we are with COVID, but we seem to be turning the corner maybe?
Well, it's been a lot better for our guys in some ways. In some ways, evaluation of players, it's harder because we haven't been able to get out. But as far as your coaches not having to be gone all of December, all of January,
that makes sense.
In recruiting, I'm not, maybe you'd happen to be around me, in the office now, you'd have all the stuff, but we're around our own kids mm-hmm. in the off season a lot more.
Right.
Now instead of being on the road recruiting, and we start up here the 16th of March. We'll start spring ball, and normally by the 15th we'd be going back out recruiting in April. Right now they've moved that back to May 31st. You just have to have a different plan of how you want to do things. We do a lot more virtual tours of the campus on FaceTime and mm-hmm. different things with student athletes and their parents. Like anything else, like in business, if it's not working, then you can't do something. You got to do something else. So
understood.
We continually keep ratcheting it up.
Sure. So you talked a little bit before we got started about kind of 10 years in 10 places, and clearly you got a love for the game, and you have to be in the position you're in. You still have that, and I mean, what happens to that after you've done as much as you have and been where you are?
Well, yeah, it's going 40 years. It's turning 61 here this month. I think probably I have the same energy I have. You work smarter. I need to keep doing a lot better job of so one of the strength is we've all been together a long time. The weakness is we've all been together a long time, and so
sounds
really
like my marriage.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm going through a program right now, a 10-week program, just how to handle the new age, what's going on, how to deal with what they would call in the box, out of the box, dealing when you have conversations with somebody like an object or as a person. Mm-hmm. Not meaning that you'd actually think of them as an object, just you're not keeping their feeling, because it's a lot more communication involved. And in our business, we've always been, you have to have a lot of communication anyway, but of how you approach it, really red flags of putting up when you're you're not probably going down the right path to get the best results you want to, which helps you at home also. You know, as I say, you say yes, dear a lot, and how you do things. But it's been a learning experience. I think that's one of the ways why a lot of them don't stay in the business, coaching whatever, for as long at one thing, because you have to have a foundation and a business plan that works, that you can handle every day and do it for a long time. You know, coaches change about every 3 years, and this will be our 24th.
Right.
And so how do you make that work? And one of the things you have to do is you just have to be honest. You have to be straightforward, and so everybody knows where you stand and how you do things. And you know, it's really, even with kids, it's sometimes because you have to push kids, young people, to reach their goals. It's not about being liked or disliked. It's really about being respected. Everybody wants to be liked, you know, when you do it. But as a general rule, there's some that, you know, you can't reach them unless you take them to a certain point, and that way you can build them back up. And so, you know, for me, that's kind of, it's always interesting. The ones you have to change, the ones you didn't have to change much, they're back right away. The ones that you have to work on changing, it might take them 5 or 6 years before they want to come back and do things, just because, and that's okay. It's, you know, you get it. But at the end of the day, it still comes down to a saying we have: 40, not 4. It's not really about from 18 to 22. It's about from 22 to 62. And so how do you help them get where they're going to get to?
So have you found that, I mean, the change of kids, you look at where you started in your career, you got technology now in their hands all the time. Have you found a change in those kids that's tougher? You have more of those kids that takes them 5 or 6 years to come back rather than that? Is it?
Well, no, not necessarily. It's really, it's still about the even. You just, you know, the old say that your parents used to say to you, do as I say, not as I do. That doesn't work, because they get so much more information. So what you have to do when even teaching football, you just have to they need a roadmap. And so, you know, we didn't really have, of the younger kids we only had 8 seniors, so we had a young team. We had some guys go out in the portal, but a lot of it had to do with, you know, we have some very good young players, and, you know, you know, competition is tough sometimes. And so it took us a while to grow up. But I think finding out a little bit more about them, I think the thing that people don't understand is that, you know, if you want to know why a young man or any young adult reacts to something, you got to look at his history of, you know, to come from 2-parent, 1-parent, no parent, what neighborhood, how you do things. And so you understand where he's at. Then it's a lot easier, like any business you would do. You've got to do your research and find out what really is important to him, right? And then, because as they say, you can't change behavior, you change mindset, right? So our whole thing is working on mindset.
So, Coach, we know you don't like talking about how much you do, but could you give us a just general brief statement about what kind of hours you put in during the season, during a typical day for the season? What kind of, just so people understand what commitments you make for the team every day? Is the hours you work, we know, are tremendous. Can you speak a little bit of that?
Well, yeah, you know, it's you know, for me, because I still like, the thing I like best is coaching. And so I still stay involved in the defensive side. But really, we start Sunday morning about 9 o'clock. I end about 1. I get back up at 6. So you're going, I don't know what those numbers are, but you're probably spending 19 hours a day until Thursday. Wow. And then I kind of catch up on my sleep. And, you know, and that takes a very strong lady at home to be able to understand that. That's why on Thursday night we have date night. Now, we didn't have it during the season this year because of COVID and everything else. But, you know, it's one of those things where you get it. And then really what I do is I don't have a hard time sleeping. So really I catch up on Thursday night and Friday night, even the night before the ball game. You know, it's always better to have a night game, because then I can sleep. You know, we don't start anything till about 9 o'clock.
Gotcha.
But, you know, it's what you do. You know, you're always trying to find a way, that one extra play or thought that's going to make a difference in a ball game. And sometimes some of those best thoughts have come on Wednesday or Thursday after you kind of step away for a second, after you do get a couple of those hours of sleep.
Sure. So my podcast partner here talks very highly of you, not when we're having you on here, but in all senses. And you think about, you know, what we touched on earlier in the impact that you've had on all these young guys and understanding them and where they are and meeting them where they are. Do you ever try to, you know, encompass that a little bit, and just, is that too big to think about? I mean, you have an incredible amount of young guys who've played for you, especially over this tenure, that's just amazing to think about how many lives you've touched of theirs.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere between 700 and 800 in 24 years here. It's you have the goods and the bads. Like anything else, if you have that large a number, not everything's perfect. But one of the things that I don't think they understand is kind of a blessing for them is that a lot of places they change coaches every 3 years, and so that next staff comes in. You don't have that other family network to be able to rely on or talk to or whatever when coaches change. Because when they come in, as I tell people, one of the things about when you change jobs or whatever you do, if you got to help yourself. You got to find a new house, get your kids in school. You got to get to know the players. Like for a coach, you got to know the boosters. Everything you do for yourself to try to get things in place. Where when you stay somewhere, you can help others.
Sure.
And so, like we do with our foundation and everything else we do, and so I've found that over the years, our kids understand that like I was saying earlier, after 24 years, you've got 45-year-old guys that were seniors when we first started at TCU, right? And so, and I'm still helping still using me as a reference of what kind of people they are when they get into business deals, all those kind of things. People are always calling me and using it, and you wouldn't have that. And that's one of the reasons, to be honest with you, that we've stayed at TCU.
Sure.
For the simple reason that you can move and you could what quote people would think a bigger. I always call them the decal on the side of the helmet, that people choose sometimes. But TCU has become that. But the bigger part of what this cool thing about TCU is just the level of a family that you're able to have. It's not everybody. It's kind of like my sisters didn't like me when I was, I was the older one. I was the older brother. They always thought I got away with things and they didn't get a chance to do anything. That hasn't changed in a football scenario either. It's just all. But it's fun for me, and probably the coolest part of my job is to see guys that get out in business, JW, from all the groups that have gone through the years, families, kids, and then they come back. And some haven't come back because, well, maybe they didn't finish their degree yet, or their job's not what they think is, quote. It really doesn't matter to us. It's more about just getting a chance to see their face, because that's the fun part, because while they're here for 4 years, our job is still to turn them into what they're supposed to turn into, right? It's because that's what we told their parents, and we told them about football, about getting a degree, about all the things you do in life, right? And then the other years are the years that you get a chance to enjoy about when they come back. And I can go from Coach Pete of just being Gary, and
sure,
doesn't matter.
That's the best part of this whole thing, Gary, is most people don't even realize that. They just see the wins and losses, but the amount of young men you've impacted in their lives forever in a lot of cases is just tremendous. And that's something that we'll ask you here but at the end of the show. But I want to change gears. This is a pretty heavy question I wanted to ask you, but besides the marriage to your wife, lovely wife Kelsey, and the birth of your children, what would you consider the best day of your life?
Well, I don't know. I've had a lot of really good days. I think if you talk football, I think probably standing on the field at the Rose Bowl was awfully pretty cool. But I think it's you watch every day when I get a chance. Really, at the end of the year when guys graduate, especially guys that were told coming out of high school that they probably wouldn't get a degree, they wouldn't do and then they finish. To see that smile. Some of the guys we've had that I think smiled bigger in those situations than they did because they knew they made their parents proud. I think that's, I'm kind of like with football, I'm kind of like I'm at Christmas. I'm not really that big a person as far as getting things. I like giving a whole lot more than I like seeing everybody in the family get what they want. They're happier, do all the things you do. And it's the same thing with the sport. It's most people in life have seen me for 3 hours. They know Gary Patterson because of what they've seen on TV. They see nothing else. And so, I'm a very intense dude. I think Nick Saban said, had a quote the other day, passion is sometimes taken as aggressiveness by those that don't want to reach their level of greatness. I mean, it's, you just.
Right. I saw that, yeah.
And so I think one of the things with me is, I'm all in. And, it's not everybody gets all in. And I'm fortunate because I have a wife that, it's allowed me, as she says about myself and her dad, said she's very lucky to be the two most important people in her life, men in her life both don't feel like they go to work. You know, because that's, you know, you don't feel like it's 19 hours a day. Now, as I've gotten older, that 19 hours a day feels a little bit. That gets to me a little bit. That gets to me a little bit sooner by the end of the season than it did when I was in my 40s. But it's been fun.
On that note, how much more do you have in you? You know, or do you even quantify that? You don't.
You know,
think that
I
way?
haven't really thought about it that way. You know, it's one of those things where it's, you know, it's one of the things. If I don't feel like I can help, you can get to TCU, or I can be what I need to be to help win ball games to do it. Then that's when you get times where you don't. But I'll never be a guy that retires. I don't. These guys that go like I've done my whole life, I think that's when, you know, you struggle as you go from 19 hours a day to what do I do? So I think I'll retire into something else. What that is, I don't know yet. But it may be fishing or golf, or maybe doing broadcasting, or you know,
singing. Maybe.
Yeah,
sure.
I'll always sing. But I'm not sure, like I said, about my royalty checks. Now, we've gotten a few more since then. I think we have almost 70,000 hits on the Spotify
awesome.
channel, which is
awesome.
So, but it's, you know, I think it'll be something that has to do with kids. I've always asked myself, I was a college football coach, what would I do? And I'd probably be in something in education, just so you can always be helping.
Very cool to hear that, Coach. Yeah.
Sure. Go ahead, J-Dub.
No, we were going to ask you. This is kind of a silly question, but you know, I know you how you're going to answer this. I think, but the best player you ever coached. I know you have coached a lot.
You cannot answer JW.
You don't have to say my name. I get it, but
it won't increase those Spotify royalty checks. I promise.
Yeah. You know, probably the best athlete was a guy by the name of Tommy Blake.
I remember him.
You know, you had a guy like, you know, Doug Freese started for the Cowboys, and we played him in the bowl game at Northern Illinois. He had like 4 sacks against him. You know, he didn't end up, because of different situations, ended up getting an opportunity to be able to do that. But obviously, you got LT. You have some, you know, you've got some really, you know, the game in 24 years has changed the type of player, all of it, and so it's really hard to be able to judge the difference between a kid that played in 2000 or 1998 to a kid that plays in 2024.
Right.
To be honest, I mean, you know, 2000, any years that we've gone on here in this 24 years we've been doing it. So, but we've had a lot of good ones, and I can tell you, you know, you can about tell you who maybe the best at each position's been through all the years at TCU. But that, you know, I wouldn't say that out loud very often, because then that's just going to be a discussion. Right. I hear the discussion all the time. Well, between the 2014, 2010 team, or you know, whatever.
Right.
Be honest with you, it's fun to watch guys come together and then be able to achieve something that they get a chance to remember the rest of their lives. I think that's pretty cool. So
on that, you know, if you got, you know, percentages you can say that are just physical raw talent versus where they are emotionally and mentally, you know, and that you spoke about that a little. What do you think those measurements are with like 2 players like you just mentioned, who are some of the best that you've ever coached?
Well, they all have same things in common. All of them, from LT to Jason Verrett, all of them, no matter what amount of running or lifting we did, they always did more. You know, they had the one intangible. They always knew how to outwork people. Yeah, they were very talented, but they also know how to outwork people. And I think when you find, whether it's a scholarship guy on our team or a guy that was a walk-on that part, it becomes very obvious whether they played football or not, if they were going to be successful in life, and what they were going to have to learn once they graduated from college. If they didn't learn from us, or they didn't want to accept learning from us, that they were going to have to learn so they could become successful. Because kind of like we say about the weight room and anything else, it's not that it makes you a great player, but it gives you don't have a chance if you don't do it. And so if you don't have great work ethic, accountability, how to deal with people, all those kind of things. Because a guy by the name of Dick Bumpus once said, the coach first he's retired, he said, here's 2 things that when you get a degree, it means. One, it says you can set goals and achieve, and second one was you can get along with people. Because, you know, probably 75% of everybody gets a job in something else besides what they graduated in. And so, and there's people that are specific about what they do, but, you know, it still comes down, the ones that I've found are successful are the ones that can relate to people, know how to work hard, be accountable, say equity, be able to do what you say you're going to do, and And so, it's hard sometimes because you've got to, especially with people you like in your family or whatever, be able to say, be able to tell them things that they don't want to necessarily they want to hear. And that's one of the harder parts of the job. That everybody thinks you want to be the head coach. As an assistant coach, it was a lot easier because if I didn't want to say that, then you could leave it the head coach. Well, when you're the head coach, you don't get that choice.
Sure.
But over the years, I think I'm finding better ways to try to relate to all that. It still comes down to you still have to have the difficult conversation sometimes, which what they don't realize is nobody wants to have that conversation. Not with your wife, not with your kids, not with my players. Nobody. Your business partner. Nobody wants to have that conversation. But if you want to move forward in life, you got to do it. So
sure.
So Brent and I speak about this quite a bit because we feel strongly about this, but it's our opinion that morally mine, because Brenton still believes in the football bat concept. But I think racial equality, nothing teaches racial equality and the true value of teamwork better than sports does, for young people especially. Do you have any thoughts on how our country, our state, our city can solve for this division between the racial division that still haunts us to this day? Because obviously on a team, my experience, other people that play sports, you play along with a guy that doesn't look like you, and you get along and you do what you do, and you don't see a person for what they look like, more as what they bring to the table. And you obviously teach these young kids at TCU this life lesson that I was lucky enough to learn from a guy just like you.
I think I've never, as a coach, as a player, you spent your whole life as a group, and I think you don't see anything different.
Right.
I think that's always the way we've always been, and I'll always be. I think I think coaches, players, all of us, we're fortunate to be able to be in a situation where we can be like that.
Right.
It's sad that we're not farther along than where we need to be, but we've made strides, and we need to keep working at it. We need to keep listening. I think that's the biggest thing that everybody needs to understand is you need to just keep listening, so we can find out, and so we can come up with those answers and do a better job of it. So
that's
good,
great.
Good answer for sure.
Yeah.
Last question, Brenton.
So I kind of touched on this before, but what do you want your legacy to be? That's kind of a hard question. You don't seem to be the guy that's going to bring out a list and say exactly what you want, but what do you think?
I'm still trying to win a national championship. Mm-hmm. I don't. It's kind of like that statue up there. I didn't ask for it. The guy wanted to do it. And he was, sick, and so it was one of his things he wanted to see before he passed away, and so we did it. But people don't understand the pressure of doing something like that. Mm-hmm. But my biggest thing is to keep moving forward. You got to learn from looking back, but I think the biggest thing is still about winning a Big 12 championship, winning a national championship. Even 2 out of the last 7 years, 14 and 17. Really probably a lot of people think probably got cheated out of getting a chance to play in the playoffs. And 17, we're playing for the Big 12 title. And so the last couple of years, we haven't been where we wanted to get back really 2 bowl games, 18, and then this year we didn't go because of reasons, but the record was there. And so getting back on track, winning ball games and going forward. And still the underneath things are still there, still graduating guys, still helping to grow up. Still, I think you can't just have that one goal, or you're always disappointed. I was always, as an assistant coach, I was never a guy that was unhappy. Some people, no matter, they get a job, they're already looking for the next job, mm-hmm. and they're never happy with what they have. And I was always, when I became an assistant, I just tried to be a great assistant. Not that you didn't still have aspirations, but it didn't ruin my day. And then when I got a chance to be a coordinator, try to be the best coordinator. And then, but someday, like everybody, you want to get a chance to be maybe a head coach, but it doesn't ruin your day. And so then I got an opportunity to do that. One of the harder decisions I ever made back in JW's day is just, Coach Fran, when they graduated, when these guys were done playing, he was going to Alabama as the head coach, and the opportunity to go to there as the defensive coordinator. And that would have been the easier decision because we lost 29 seniors, 10 went to the NFL. You have a Hall of Famer, LT, Aaron Schobel. You had all these players that went on. but get an opportunity to stay somewhere, and because I don't, as you said earlier, and we talked about it, all the moving. Everybody talks about the grass is greener, but I've always said, you got to water your own grass.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's get an opportunity, because any coach that I ever talked to that has ever worked at TCU, every one of them would come back, not just on our staff, but anybody else before, just because of the city, the people, and everything that went along with Fort Worth and TCU. And so for me, getting the opportunity to be able to do that, a guy once told me a long time ago, he said, what you want to do is get to a point in your life when you say no more than you say yes, for the simple reason of understanding, where you're at, you don't need all that. When you're younger, you got to say yes, like you said, at 10 universities in 15 years.
Yeah.
And now, we're going on another 24 years of being at one place. And so, it takes a lot out of you to move and to do all those kind of things. And fortunately for us, we've had all the mixture of things, from recruiting base to when we've needed something, our booster, everybody that has helped us build it, from our stadiums to our facilities inside, the weight room, training room equipment, all the things that we've been able to do. And the university's grown because that's all happened. I think one of the things that people, they don't realize is what their movement, or whatever they did, their decision. It's kind of like Scrooge, the movie. You see, well, if he would have, when he goes back in life and if he just changed a couple decisions, how much better he made people's lives.
Yeah.
And I kind of think about it. That's kind of the way I've looked at it. We're around here for somebody. If I wouldn't have been here, or somebody that didn't know student when he turned 30 and he needed help talking about something, or he needed a job recommendation, that we were still here.
Yeah.
And I think everybody sees the football side of it, but there's such a bigger side of being somebody that was kind of a staple of trying to make a difference, and that's the other thing about we've really tried to do with our foundation now that it's turned into the Big Good with Leon Bridges, which is is a Fort Worth native, and part of what we do, and Chris Harrison. It's one of those things to be able to grow it, understand what we can do from the educational part to we fed over 100,000 people here at Thanksgiving with the help of partners, the Fort Worth, the Tarrant County Food Bank, the North Texas Food Bank, and be able to do things. And that's just going to keep growing, I think. And if you move, like I said earlier, you can't do all that kind of stuff. You have to be able to just take care of yourself. But and sometimes, it's the adult thing that everybody hates making that adult decision. There's a lot of things you love to do, but there's some things you have to do differently, because it's the best for everybody. And so that's what we've tried to get accomplished. Kelsey and I have, and the staff, and it's been fun. We haven't had a lot of turnover. I've got like 9 or 10 former players or GAs that started with us. Got a couple coaches that have been with me longer than I've been at TCU, 25, 26 years. And so it's it's not very often that assistant coaches grow up where their kids can actually start in kindergarten and actually go all the way through their schooling in one place.
Yeah, so it sounds a lot like you don't really need to leave a legacy because you already got one living.
So Gary, we really appreciate the time today. There's a lot of talking heads out there that say some pretty terrible stuff. I know you don't listen to it, as you shouldn't. Those people that know you sitting in this room, and then lots of people in this city, are appreciative of what you've done for the city. You're a great coach. You're even a better person. That's the best part about you,
Thanks.
Gary. You do some really good things. The Gary Patterson Foundation, we want to make a shout out to that foundation. Obviously, you're sitting here today. It's a great foundation. Do some really good things. I wish you well with Leon Bridges. He's a heck of a guy.
He's a great singer, and he's a great young man. I tell you, it's been fun.
Well, thank you for all you've done for the city. Wins or losses, you do a good job for a lot of men, a lot of young men, and that can never be overlooked, because those guys, people like me, that can't thank you enough. So we're appreciative of you being here, sharing some of your time. So we could waste a little bit of yours, but thanks again, Coach.
We'll see you.
What they meant to say was not reported. Before the torches come to town, we gonna burn this fort down.